Hello students. Today we are conducting this particular session to look at the deeper insights of Prelims 2026. When I say that, there are 3-4 major aspects for having this particular session being streamed today. One is to look at the solutions for Prelims 2026. Two, as you know, there was a provisional key which was released. There were certain contentions which are being put forth, and there is a window which has been provided by UPSC to apply for those contentions and do the necessary changes to the released key. So we would look at which all questions would arise for contentions. 3, we would also see how to handle this particular paper, not only using sheer knowledge, but also using certain logical guessing and certain elimination techniques which have been very relevant even for 2026 per se. Because many of us were of a perception that this was lengthy, this was impossible, but definitely it was lengthy, but the right aspect of this would have been picking up the right questions and also applying certain techniques and applying certain logical consistency dimension into the question. You would be able to solve these questions. So in today's session, we would look at multiple aspects of Prelims 2026 for Paper 1. Now, starting off, the first question, which it is talking about to a larger extent, is it's a question on Raga Bilwala and in Hindustani music similar to Raga Bilwala. And now this is a question which is very specific with respect to the knowledge base that's existing. But to a larger extent, we do not get into such deeper perspectives of knowledge here. But one similar technique that can be seen in 2024 paper, in 2025 paper is, most of the times we see the longest statement or the longest option to be the right option. But the disclaimer here is going to be, this is a particular technique which is applicable in a question which is containing unknown facts. We would again see the similar technique being utilized all across the paper, at least in 3-4 questions, which is very, very relevant in this particular aspect. If you are applying that particular technique, answer is with respect to D. Then looking at the second question, the second question is talking about the Hilton-Young Commission. Now, the question itself has the answer, because one peculiar aspect of 2026 prelims that can be seen is, in at least 10 to 12 questions, we have the answer present within the question. Now, although it might appear as a post-mortem analysis, but in the HAR sessions as well as in my experience of clearing some of the toughest prelims papers, be it 21, be it 23, be it 25, I can definitely tell that this is what is the general nature of UPSC, which could be seen to a larger extent. So keeping that, now it is talking about rupee sterling exchange rate. Hilton-Young was adopted by British government. Now in this, one thing is very, very clear, that it is dealing with the flow of remittances between India and as well as the credit worthiness. That means now exchange rates majorly dealing with the remittances, and that was the purpose of this particular commission in 1926. Now that was a clue which was existing within the question, because now you see, one option is talking about imports, one option is talking about exports. Now if it was related to exchange rate, it should be dealing with both imports and exports, but it cannot be both B and C. Preventing depreciation of the rupee in terms of gold. Now this is a very illogical option which has been purposefully set by UPSC. So the remaining option here is A. So answer for this Hilton-Young question is A. Now third question is again a straightforward question, simple question. Now here, most of us were worried about the statements which are given. Rather, these are more to deal with the reasoning assertion kind of questions which are present in this. Now it is talking about the reference to the coins, that is Nikha, Kamsa, Kanakika. And it is also talking about the literary evidences with respect to the punch-marked coins and which were mostly made up of silver. Now that's a common factual understanding that we see here. Now, but the question is not with respect to this. The question is which of the following are associated. One is the emergence of urban life. The emergence of urban life can definitely be seen with respect to the coinage. And also coinage shows the transition towards money economy because the prayer systems were majorly barter systems. And on a later date, you see the emergence of coinage, emergence of coins will indicate the money economy was prevalent in this particular aspect. So the answer for the third question is both 1 and 2. Now here, the answer was prevalent in the question itself. All that this demanded during the examination was calm mind. Somebody who had calm mind could definitely get this particular questions because this was one common changed pattern which could be observed to a larger extent. Now looking at the fourth question, we see it is asking about Nagara style. That means it is with respect to dealing with the North Indian temples. Now in this we definitely know something with respect to Pattadakal. It is dealing with respect to Hoysala or Chalukyan kingdom with respect to that aspect. So you remove the fourth option and you definitely know Dashavatara temple has Nagara style. So third option should have been there. So which means A could be eliminated. Now I will have to see between B and C. And in this, the answer is going to be 2 and 3 with respect to Huchi Mallagudi temple, Aihole. Because when we look at the Vesara style is a combination of Nagara as well as Dravidian style. So certain aspects, certain architecture of Aihole also had the traces of the Nagara Shikara which was existing. Now looking at the fifth question, among the 4 forms, which of the following was not included? Now one peculiar observation that could be seen from UPSC Prelims 2026, so many questions had the composition of not correct. So many questions have had the composition with respect to not included or not present. Now that means they were not just asking us the straight thing, but they were asking about which was not part of it. Now in this, you know, the philosophy will fundamentally talk about humans, Trayancha. Both of them are part of our existence of life in 4 forms. But what is more important that has to be observed here is the question is going to be between Devas and Yakshas. Now one common logic, one common technique that we discuss in the prelims eliminations as well as the HR sessions that we see here is the answer mostly is between the common names. Now when I say common names, in both of the options we have gods. So answer should have been between A and B. Now that means with that particular logic we could arrive at 50-50, and in this it's very clear the Jainism never spoke about the demigods. Right? The Jainism never spoke about the demigod aspect, so the answer here is option B. Now the sixth question with respect to Haile Selassie, many people were worried about how could UPSC ask a question with respect to painting in Bhaga caves. Now here it was trying to test the etymological understanding with respect to these words. Because most of the ancient history that we discuss can be solved using etymological approach. Now be it the Arigatha in the context of 2016, be it the Arigatha in the context of 2025. In the similar manner here we know the Lasya. Lasya has something to do with dance, and in this particular aspect we only see one option having joyous folk dance. So that is going to be one fundamental understanding that you need to have with respect to this particular question. So what do I say here and what is the understanding here to be brought in by UPSC here is that we need to have knowledge. One aspect is basic knowledge, conceptual clarity, but solving prelims examination using this knowledge base is not sufficient. And this is not the case with 2026 prelims. It has been 2025, 2023, 2024, 2021, 2022, 2018. In all of these instances, we could see that it was not mere knowledge, but beyond knowledge aspect. Why? Because most of the cases that extrapolated knowledge was what was being asked, and it was also looking at what is the logical consistency a candidate can think about when it comes to the examination. Now consider the following statements relating to the use of place value system. Now in this particular question, I would say it's your option whether you could definitely read the statement or you could skip the statement or you could skip this particular question. But my personal choice in the examination hall would have been to skip this question. The answer for 7th question is 1, 2, 3. The answer for 7th question is 1, 2, 3. Next, 8th question. Now, this is again a question with respect to Harappan towns. And here, the question is not with respect to this aspect, but there were certain inferences which could be drawn from the given statements. That means the answer is within. Now, what are they saying? Statement 1 suggests that spinning was a laborious activity done at home. Now, let's look at statement 1. There is wide occurrence of spindle whorls in the house, but the absence of spinning wheels. That means they were talking about there was less of automation, more of man-made and more of hand-used systems which were existing. So statement 1 is correct. Statement 2 suggests the extent of scientific knowledge that the Harappan possessed, because it is talking about weights and measures and also talking about a civilizational aspect which fundamentally indicates the scientific advancements which are existing in this region. And the third statement is suggested the emergence of common property. Now, one thing that we know is there was nothing like private property, there was nothing like private ownership which was existing, and there was no concept of property aspect which was prevalent. So the statement 3 is incorrect. So you remove statement 3, you arrive at the answer. You remove statement 3, you arrive at the answer. So the answer for this particular question that you have to come across is option A. Now, 9th question, again, this is a question which was simple knowledge base which was existing. And there is no much speculation in this particular aspect because we see the time periods that were seen to be converging, and we also see a straightforward option being present in this particular aspect. The answer for this particular question is option C, that is Bardoli Satyagraha was campaign against land revenue, whereas Eka movement was a protest which was prevalent. There's no much of discussion, it was sheer knowledge which you could have answered. Now coming to the 10th question, the context of the 10th question here is it's being complicated by talking about the statements which are supporting the above statements. Now that means here they have reversed the pattern which they have just followed so far. Be it in the question of Harappan civilization or be it with respect to the previously discussed 2 questions where what are the inferences, but here they are talking about which statement supports it. That means the inferences were given, but what is the supporting argument which is existing? So irrigation from the well, so they are talking about irrigation in the first statement. There is evidence in Rig Veda talking about to drop the water. So drawing up the water also has an element with respect to irrigation, yes. So 1 will sit right with respect to the substantiation. 2, the trot animal powers was employed to drop water out of the wells. Okay, the second one is also talking about the draught animal power and the usage, because this is a question which could be seen as a derivative from Arigata. In 2025, we had a similar option which was existing with respect to Arigata, and this can be traced to a question which is derived from PYQs. So mention has been made in Rig Veda with respect to implements. There is a history of use of ox. Now here, in the second statement which it is present here, you observe that there was no reference made with respect to the implements which were being used, because above in both the statements, one was talking about the irrigation, the other one was talking about usage of animal power. That means second statement do not have any relation here. So when second statement do not have any relation, but the third statement has the relation here because history of usage of ox even before Rig Veda for plowing and pulling the carts. So which fundamentally indicates that answer is 1 and 3 for this particular question. Next. Now, many of us were boggled by this particular question, that is 11th question, but let us look what UPSC is actually looking into. Now, it is talking about in Pleistocene period, Yamuna once flowed into Indus, Satluj flowed into Yamuna, and one major tributary either had shifted from Ganga to Indus or vice versa. What does this fundamentally mean? This was showing that once upon a time, all of these were together. One was flowing into the other, one was diverging from the other. That means, now if I am saying this is one common pool of all of this is what is going to be existing. Now the Nadi Sukta of Rig Veda, assertion it is talking about, okay, the exploration of the Satluj, Bruce Fort. I am not having any clue with respect to statement 1, statement 2. Leave that aside. The presence of the same species in both the Indus and Ganges system. Now, we know if it is all flowing into the common pool, we definitely know this common pool would be having same species. The same species could be present. Now, even with the knowledge of the environment, we would be able to tell that we have dolphin, which is a common species, which is present here. And when we look at the beauty of UPSC, now we know third is definitely right. We don't know about 1 and 2. Now look at the option. Only in one option it has given third statement. Only in one option it has given third statement, which means if you are able to deduce that this is a right statement irrespective of knowledge on 1 and 2, we were able to arrive at the answer because we definitely know option 3 is right. So the answer for this is D. Now the next question is simple knowledge base with respect to representation of empty seat, that is meditation, that is option A. Then 13th question with respect to which of the following rivers. Now in this one thing is very clear, we know about Paroshni, which is Ravi. Now we know definitely 3 is right. Now when 3 is right, I am remaining with 3 and 4 and 3 only. Now in this particular case, now this is again a sheer knowledge base. There is, because this is what we start off our ancient India with. And in that particular aspect, if you are able to understand, because, and I can also say, this is a question which was very similar to last year, which was talking about the 16 Mahajanapadas and the respective capitals. And here what are we having? There it was 16 Mahajanapadas and capitals which was being asked. Here we are asking about, they are asking about the knowledge with respect to the rivers which are present. So the answer for this is C, because all other 3 are interchanged and wrongly matched. Now 14th question, Amaravati Stupa. Now again this is a PYQ derived question from 2023. This is a PYQ derived question from 2023. You see it is Amaravati Stupa and its relief sculpture. We know Amaravati Stupa with respect to Krishna Valley. Now we are not very sure about the second statement. Look at the third statement. School of Sculpture made a lasting impact on the later South Indian sculpture, and products were carried to Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia. Now, in this particular question, you have to observe that the second statement is incorrect because it was next only to Sanchi Stupa in size. No, because we have so many other stupas. In fact, many stupas in Bihar will fundamentally indicate a larger size to be present. And in this particular context, it is not only next to the size. So the second statement is eliminated. When we eliminate second statement, we are remaining with 2 and 3, 1, 2, 3. We are remaining with 1 and 1 and 3. Now in this, the third statement is talking about what the sculpture made a lasting impact on South Indian sculpture. Yes, because Krishna Valley, South India, consistent, and its products were carried to Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia. Now that statement is also correct. So the answer for this is going to be 1 and 3. Now look at this framing of the question. On the face of it, this question appears very difficult. But here 2 common mistakes which students made here is they have taken not correctly matched, means they are asking about incorrect, but many students have marked correct. Now in this, we know Senguttuvan is the red chera. So 1 is right, but they are asking which are incorrect. So automatically we are eliminating 1 and 2 and 1 and 3. And we know that the second one is incorrect, that is with respect to Chola. So now when we know that second one is incorrect, we are only remaining with one option, that is option B. Now why am I telling at this particular juncture is, please understand, prelims is not a mere game of knowledge. I've been talking about this with respect to HAR sessions. And also I am very, very clear about this dynamic with my experience of clearing multiple prelims. Not with civil services cutoff, but forest service cutoff. And in that understanding, the writing on the wall is very clear. That prelims is not a mere game of knowledge, not mere game of books, not mere game of rote learning. Prelims fundamentally demands application. No doubt the paper is lengthy. No doubt it appeared very uncertain. No doubt it appeared very random. But at the end of the day, we have to understand it is a relative competitive exam. Come what may, we will have to succeed. We will have to adjust our necessary footwork according to the rules of the game which is present here. And the rules of the game are very clear with respect to prelims examination, that it is something beyond knowledge. This is not the first year where UPSC is going beyond knowledge. It is always the case for last 5-6 years when it comes to the prelims examination. Now, 16th question, again it is talking about forward block. Now, in this, one thing is very clear. We know Subhash Chandra Bose, the conflict in 1939. So, first statement is correct because he had to resign in spite of being elected as the president of INC. The Congress left was disunited and failed to support Bose. Okay. Now, communists did not support. Now, one fundamental understanding that you got to remember is 1940s was mostly the era which was related to the socialist and the communist. And in this particular aspect, the third statement appears incorrect. And more importantly, the pattern of the statement here, whichever statements are seen to be having did not, and not, may not, cannot, most of the times we see that such statements are seen to be going wrong. This is not magical. This is sheer basis on the pattern of the UPSC prelims examinations and the prelims question papers which have been set. So in this particular context, this particular statement is incorrect. So once you eliminate 3, you don't have to validate other statements. Now once you eliminate 3, we know 1 is definitely right, because that is very evident in the context of the conflict with respect to the presidentship between Mahatma Gandhi and Subhash Chandra Bose. So 1 is definitely right. So answer is B. Now, that is what is UPSC expecting to a larger extent when it comes to the smarter approach. All this paper demanded was a calm composure. Now, look at 17th question. It is asking about Awadh immediately in annexation. The talukdars were dispossessed of their estates but allowed to retain the arms and forts. Now, the problem with this statement is, now if they were dispossessed with estates, how could they be having the possession of arms and forts? Because at the end of the day, them having estates is less powerful than them having access to arms and forts. So in that particular aspect, the statement 1 is incorrect. Now, the summary revenue settlement was made in 1856. Yes, that is right. The British believed in taking revenue directly from the presence by removing talukdars. Now, here if they were talking about dispossessment, they should have talked about dispossessment of every aspect and all the powers which were existing. So, first statement is incorrect in this particular question. So the answer is going to be option A, because 1 we are removing, answer is 2 and 3. Now if you do not have any knowledge, I would say you can also leave this question. You can also leave this question. That could be left, because in this paper what was being demanded was leaving some questions which could not be answered irrespective of reading. That was the approach which was supposed to be left here, because it's very clear even in the game of the cricket that I cannot hit every ball to a 6. I will have to know which ball to be left, which ball to be played at any cost. Now this is talking about Montagu Chelmsford. Now again when I started this session, I made a clear-cut statement that in most of the questions UPSC has given answer within the question. And when we are talking about this answer within the question, the statement here is talking about political alliance based on community in Montagu Chelmsford Reforms 1990. Now here reforms retained an extended principle of separate electorate. This is community centric. It was supposed to be, yes, this is again very logical because that is more to deal with the divide and rule. And deprived classes rallied around favor inherit. Yes. Now because that was what was settled down with respect to the Pune Pact in 1930s. So the answer for this particular question is 1, 2, 3. All of them are right statements when it comes to this particular question. Next, 19th question. Pandita Mallikarjuna Mansur, the famous classical singer from Karnataka. If you remember that I was talking about one particular logic and one particular observation that was made from the pattern of UPSC prelims, that in a question with unknown fact, the longest option happens to be the right answer. And when I say this, you can go and cross-check with respect to 24 paper, 25 paper, 22 paper, 21 paper, 23 paper. This is very evident from the pattern. Why? Because now there are certain set of patterns which are followed by UPSC, and reading the pattern and understanding the pattern is very, very important for solving this exam. for qualifying this exam. So in this particular question, you see all three are of one particular option. So answer is Jaipur and Atrauli Garana. Now this might seem funny, because will UPSC question us in that manner? Will UPSC be expecting us to observe this pattern? I would say if something is giving us a right answer, I would say if something is a very repetitive pattern which is seen to be existing with respect to the statements, I say there is no harm in considering that particular statement. There is no harm in considering that particular trend. There is no harm in applying that particular technique. I understand civil services demands knowledge base, but the nature of the examination has been changing for last 5 years, and we will have to step up the game up to that particular level. We understand there's a lot of uncertainty which is present in the paper, but the UPSC has been following the similar trends when it comes to these questions. And this could be observed in last 5 years at any cost. So the answer for 19 is D. Now you might say, sir, in this, why don't we apply the longest option? Now, I don't see any longest option to be very evident in this particular question, because I see the options are in such a way that which are set in that particular manner. So when you look at this particular question, among the following tests, the term Kshetra Patni, the mistress of the field, originate. Now this is a tough question, and in this we can definitely eliminate Ashtadhyayi, that is regarding grammar, Arthashastra, that is fundamentally regarding the administration. Now we are remaining with two options, because I already told you the options are going to be, or the correct answer is going to be among the common words here we have in both of these Vedas. Just like the gods, here also we have Vedas. Now you are arriving at 50-50. This is a tough question. This is a tough question. You are arriving at 50-50. Now you will have to choose between Rig Veda and Atharva Veda, and the answer for 20th question is Atharva Veda. Next. Now this is again a beautiful question that can be seen. It is talking about what is India's response when it comes to climate change. Now when we look at what is India's response with respect to climate change, it is talking about LT-LEDs and achieving net zero by 2070, because that's our target. Most of the other countries have looked into 2050 as the target, but we have targeted 2070, no doubt. So first statement. Now India's fourth annual, we are not very sure about this statement, so let's keep it as it is. Climate resilient development necessarily demands on quick and short-term achievements. Now, one thing that you'll have to understand is something which is dealing with climate resilience will definitely not be short-term, but they will be long-term. So the statement in itself is logically inconsistent. Now let's see what they are playing about. Statement 1 is empirically supported by statement 2. Statement 1 is talking about net zero by 2070. And statement 2 is talking about 8% decrease with respect to greenhouse gas emissions. Now when we say 8% decrease in greenhouse gas emissions, which means it is going to support us achieving towards net zero. So 1 and 2 are, yes, they are empirically supported. Statement 2 contradicts the approach of statement 1. Definitely you might not understand the complete aspect, but just look at the verbatim which is existing. One is talking about long term, the other one is talking about the short term. So definitely in both of this, 1 and 3 are contradictory to each other. So this is correct, this is correct. Statement 1 and 3 together. Now the logic here is very clear. If statement 3 is contradicting statement 1, statement 3 cannot go along with statement 1. So in this particular context, what I would like to tell you, so third is incorrect, so we eliminate 3, we are remaining with 1 and 2. Again, a simple, straightforward understanding that you'll have to observe in this particular question. Next, 22nd. Now this is one very, very common understanding that could be seen, because whenever we are discussing, we know the species of the Northeast, the national parks of the Northeast, as well as the central India are very, very important for the exam. We know that particular trend, and that is a trend which has been observed with respect to UPSC. So, and in that particular context, what you got to understand here is, one thing is very, very clear that is to be understood, that this is a question with respect to Hulock Gibbon. Statement 1 is correct with respect to the endangered status. Now they have specialized brachiation, because at the end of the day we know it is a gibbon species, it is a primate species which is present. So the brachiation is one such particular locomotory trend which can be observed. They possess a strong and heavy build like gorillas, yet remarkable enough. That is not the case. That is not the case when it comes to this. That is not the case with respect to Hulock gibbons. Now, you might say, sir, how come this gibbons came into the picture? I would say this is again a PYQ derivative from 2023. In 2023 also there was one question with respect to the usage of stick as a tool to eat insects. And in that particular context, we had seen the answer was orangutan. And in that, you see there is a derivative which is present because primate species is important in this context. So the answer for this is 1 and 2. Both the statement 1 and 2 are right. And the third one is incorrect. Now, which of the following? Now, most of us might be worried about, is it talking about mangrove, deeper aspects of mangrove? Let's see. It is talking about climate resilience. Mangrove reduces tidal energy and fresh water making. Now, please understand, they are talking about climate resilience and paddy cultivation any given day is more of an unsustainable aspect when it comes to the climate. So at the end of the day, first statement is logically inconsistent. The second one is their salt-sensitive roots filter seawater, making mangroves key to converting coastal lands into freshwater aquaculture. Now, this is never going to promote climate resilience because if you're converting this into aquaculture zones, because what is seen to be happening with Koleru Lake in the state of Andhra Pradesh, this is what is exactly happening, and we see that's a problem. We see that's a problem. We see what is happening with respect to Koringa mangroves in Andhra Pradesh. That is a problem. Because at the end of the day, these are pH sensitive species, these are saline tolerant species, and they don't have to convert them because aquacultural zone will fundamentally have a lot of pollution which would affect the natural ecosystem rather promoting the resilience. Now looking at the third statement, by withstanding tidal surges and offering biomass, mangrove both natural bioshield as well as livelihood. Yes. So you see 1 and 2 are definitely incorrect because one is talking about resilience, the other one is definitely polluting and affecting the natural ecosystem. So the answer is 3 only because 1 and 2 are incorrect. That is what I told you, the logical consistency in the statements were being tested rather than the knowledge base. Now the same thing could be observed with respect to this particular question. The same thing could be observed with respect to this particular question here, that it is talking about the India's maritime trade and logistic policy which should be observed in this particular aspect. Now 1, by functioning exclusively as a domestic, reduce the reliance on the coastal shipping and eliminate the need. Now we cannot eliminate the need of foreign collaboration. That's an extreme word which is used in the statement. So any extreme word definitely we remove. By focusing primarily on passenger cruise tourism and heritage shipping to increase Kerala profile as a maritime heritage destination. Now again, that is nothing to do with respect to the passenger cruise or heritage destination. By leveraging its natural deep draft and strategic location to reduce dependence on foreign transshipment, enhance revenue retention. This is more of a comprehensive statement that has been provided. This is more of a comprehensive statement that has been provided because 1 on the face of it is incorrect. Now if we eliminate 1, we are remaining with 2 and 3 and 3 only. And in this we see the second statement is talking about something commercial. Second statement is not categorically focusing upon expanding the maritime aspects of it because the question itself is talking about what is the context of this sport being established. So the answer for this is third statement. Now identify the river. Now again this is a 2019 PYQ derived question which is a similar wordings present. This is a 2019 PYQ derived question. The answer for this is Sutlej. You can go back and refer. In that particular question also we had 2 of these 4 statements which were existing. Now we might say PYQs are not directly asked in the exam, but PYQs are definitely derived when it comes to this particular examination. It is very, very clear when it comes to its pattern. That's one thing that we will definitely have to take away when we talk about this particular exam. Now moving to the next question. Now moving to the next question, that is, which of the following with reference to, now again I was intimating in the starting of the session itself that UPSC has been keen this year upon asking which of the following are not present, not correct, not included, not inferred, those aspects. Now UP shares its boundary with highest number, that's a correct statement. So 1 is right. Now when 1 is right, you remove 1, that means I'm remaining with 2 and 3 and 3. So 3 is compulsorily part of it. Now if you validate the second statement, we'll be able to arrive. Rajasthan shares the longest. Now international border, it is not the Rajasthan, but rather it is West Bengal which shares the longest international border. So second is also incorrect. So the answer is C. Next. So that means what is going to matter to us is we cannot simply read the question first and come to the options. We will have to do a parallel operation to a larger extent for us to save time when it comes to these options here. Now, which of the following statements with regard to arrival of Amur falcon in Nagaland each year from Mongolia is correct? Now, we know it's a migratory bird which is present, so 27th. Look at this. It showcases how sustained the local conservation efforts. The local conservation, because Amur falcon was known for community conservation models with respect to one particular community, that is Naga community in the Nagaland. So first statement is right. It reflects the global success of advanced tracking technology. It was never advanced tracking technology which was put, but rather it was centered and it was driven by the community conservation. So the second statement is incorrect. Now third option here is, third statement is talking about Amur falcons have adapted permanent residency. Now there is a mutual inconsistency which is seen to be existing in the statement, because one, it is talking about migration, one, it is talking about permanent residency. So 3 is incorrect. So if you are not very sure about the second statement, if you are able to eliminate 3, we arrive at 1, 1 and 2. And in this we know second is not talking about, it is dealing with technology, whereas 1 is dealing with community conservation. It was mostly community conservation, not the technology. So the answer is A here. Next. Which among the following, now this is again a beautiful question which has been framed, and UPSC was very, very clear in such questions that I am not asking you to by heart the objectives, but rather understand the essence of that particular scheme through its etymology, through its names, through its composition. Now here, it is talking about rain-fed area development and with respect to mission sustainable agriculture. Now the understanding is very clear, sustainable agriculture. Now look at the first option, encouraging monoculture. Monoculture is not part of sustainable agriculture, because monoculture reduces the biodiversity, reduces the fundamental aspect of sustainability. So 1 is incorrect. Now remove 1. I am remaining with 2 and 3, so I'll have to look at 2. Increasing rice cultivation. Now again, rice cultivation is mostly unsustainable, that we know, because it is water intensive in nature. It is talking about sustainable agriculture. So second is also incorrect. So the answer is what? 3. Because third itself is very clear. It is enhancing productivity, minimizing climate risk, and also talking about integrated farming systems to a larger extent. Now 29th question. It is talking about Ecotech certification for Eri silk. We know there are 4 varieties of silk. And Eri is part of non-mulberry. It is most of Vanya silk. It is mostly wild silk which is present. Now it is talking about a particular certification. Now it allows Indian exporters to compete for high-end market, prioritize chemical-free products. Now this statement is what is talking about to a larger extent sustainability and also ensuring livelihood. That is a correct statement. It confirms that Eri silk meets international safety, environmental and quality standards and eco-conscious markets. Now we know that the general understanding by looking at the pattern for last few years in UPSC, we know any positive statement is a right statement. And when I say any positive statement is a right statement, how to understand a statement is positive statement? If it is having the components of good governance, if it is having something with respect to progressive aspects, it is having something related to sustainable development goals, or it is having some aspects with respect to sustainability. Now, any statement which is right and which is having these compositions are always right. Now, this is what I give as part of the generalizations, which is part of HIR, high impact revision. So, based upon that, irrespective of knowing or not knowing this certification mechanism, The statement is rather talking about the consequence of having such a certification, and most of the times, anytime the quality standards are ensured, 1, to promote the export quality, 2, to promote the livelihood, 3, to expand the market system, 4, to also ensure the eco-consciousness is ensured in this particular aspect. So the answer for this is both 1 and 2. Now, the understanding is very clear. It is that if you are able to diagnose the pattern of UPSC, prelims is going to be easy with respect to qualification for a reason that most of the times it is checking the logical consistency, most of the time it is looking at the knowledge plus approach as well as a smart way of solving it. Now, 30th question, it is a simple straightforward current affairs question. Answer is 1 and 3 with respect to 30th question. No much of discussion in that particular aspect. Now, 31st, more or less a factual question. Now, if it's your choice whether to go with it or not. Now, the answer here is Ecuador, A, option A. Now, 32nd question, it was in news, again, current affairs. It is talking about Madham National Park, declared as Tiger Reserve, yes. Sakya Sagar, that is also correct statement. But third statement, you look. Its area is shared between Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan. Now here third statement is definitely wrong because this is a national park which is present in Madhya Pradesh. So remove third statement. So the answer is what? 1 and 2, because both the statements are right with respect to Sakya Sagar and also it being declared as the 58th Tiger Reserve which is present. Next, with reference to the climate of Andaman and Nicobar. Now when we look at the climate of Andaman and Nicobar, when we look at the latitudinal position, we see it is in the tropics. And when we know it is in the tropics, we see it should be having some tropical climatic condition. The climate can be defined as humid and tropical. Yes, it receives rainfall from both southwest as well as northeast, because just like India, which is seen to be experiencing both southwest and northeast, so that's a condition that is observed. And the maximum precipitation is seen between December and May. Now that is not the case with respect to this. Why? Because we know the most of the rainfall that is received by India is the dominant of southwest rather than northeast. That is not the case. So the answer here is going to be third statement is incorrect. Now remove third statement. You're remaining with 1 and 2. Now what is the examiner seeing here? It is asking you, it is looking at what is the kind of extrapolations that can be drawn. Next, which of the following geographical features or phenomena is associated with peninsular block? We know the overall understanding of peninsular block is a volcanic deposition. And we know the basaltic depositions which has resulted in this formation. We see submergence of the part. Yes, we see that. Presence of residual mountains. Yes, that is from the side of the Eastern Ghats which are seen to be present. Now it is talking about deep and V-shaped river valleys. Now this V-shaped river valleys is majorly a feature that can be seen around the Himalayan regions, because we see the loose sediments which are existing, and we also see the youthful rivers which are flowing in the Himalayan region are more responsible for the formation of these deep valleys. But that is not the case in the context of peninsular region, because it is not so easy to erode this region for it to be forming a deep V-shaped valleys, because most of your V-shaped valleys demand a large extent of vertical erosion to a larger extent. And when we have that vertical erosion, for vertical erosion to be happening, we have to see the erodibility as well as the erosive character which is existing. So the third factor is incorrect. So the answer is going to be 1 and 2. Again, simple, basic, conceptual questions which are being asked. Now I would say 35 question is the one where UPSC was again trying to test what is your composure in the exam. It was never asking about the overall details of Sagarmala, but rather it was talking about the essence for India adapting this Sagarmala project. Now, when we look at this overall understanding of the Sagarmala project, you see the Sagarmala program seeks to achieve port-led economic growth. That's an overall objective, cost-effective, sustainable coastal infrastructure. Then the success of the Sagarmala program. The success of the Sagarmala program is reflected in the coastal and inland waterway along with improved global port ranking. Sagarmala 2 aims to position India as global maritime innovation hub. Fair enough. Now let's see what is it talking about. Statement 2 validates strategies envisioned in Statement 1. Statement 2 is talking about inland waterway along with improved global port tracking, which will support the Statement 1. Statement 3 extends the objective of Statement 1 by embedding them into future-oriented innovation. Yes, that's also right, because Statement 3, you see position about India's position on maritime innovation and Viksit Bharat objective. Now, Statement 1 contradicts Statement 3. Now, the understanding is very clear. If 2 is right, 3 cannot be right. And there is no contradiction which can be seen in the third statement, because third statement is also reinforcing why should we have port-led development, why should we look at port-led modernization, why should we look at enhancement of coastal community and the livelihood that are existing. So the third statement here is incorrect. So the answer for this particular question is 1 and 2. 1 and 2, because there is no contradiction in this particular statements which are given about Sagarmala. It is talking about the essence. This is very similar to the question on mangroves which was asked previously. Next, 36th question. Now, 1, it is an epiphytic orchid. We know, yes, the name itself has orchid. And we know most of the orchids are present in the Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, in that particular region. So the third statement will automatically go logically consistent. Now, what is the second statement? Should I validate? Now, if I know 1 and 3 is right, I can arrive at the answer. But how can you say second statement is incorrect? Now, one thing that I can see here is the species is endemic to northeastern India. Now, one simple logic that we see is anything that is endemic. Anything that is endemic will definitely have the name of India somewhere, or will definitely have the name of the region in India somewhere. Now, when that is the condition which could be observed, now look at the name itself, Rhynchostylis retusa. Definitely it is not an Indianized name. Definitely there is no region which is corresponding to India which is present. So automatically what could be observed here is it is not something which is endemic. Because when we look at, for suppose there are certain endemic species, for suppose you look at something with respect to Kashmiri stag, or you look at something like Nilgiri Thar. Now most of these which are endemic to India will definitely contain the region or the name which is present in India. So that is not the case, so automatically second statement is going to go wrong. Now look at 37th question. This was part of UNESCO World Heritage. Now it is asking about Moedoms. Now Taihom Kingdom. Now they acted as army fortresses. Now even if you knew that these were mounds, you can definitely say it is not army fortress. It was not meant for recreation. And when we say these are mounds, Moedom is nothing but mound, we say these are nothing but burial grounds. And they were battle drill centers? No. Because you see, they were neither recreation, they were neither related to army, it was a burial site which was present. So the answer for this is 3. The basic knowledge, it is never asking you a detailed knowledge about this. If you knew that Moedom was nothing but the mounds which were existing. And when we know these are mounds which were existing, we definitely can understand that these are mostly the burial sites which are present. Nothing to do with respect to the recreation centers or nothing to do with respect to the army training centers. Next. Again 38th question. Now it's asking about the conference which has happened, but on the face of it, the question might appear that it is asking about some specific factual details about this conference. But again, as I was indicating initially, that this is majorly talking about, in most of the instances, we find answers for the question being present. UNOC in France, FAO leading demonstrating its voice in marine and ocean issues, especially sustainable fisheries, aquaculture, resilient livelihood, and blue transformation. Now look at these lines and see which of the following combinations about the 4 betters are being present in this particular question. Now 4 betters processed by blue revolution: better production, better nutrition, better environment, better ocean. Better production, better nutrition, better environment, better life. Now look at this particular question. It is talking about production, nutrition, environment, life. Now because that is what is present: livelihood, nutrition with respect to aquaculture, sustainability factor with respect to environment as well as marine issues with respect to environment, and also better production, again which could be seen, better production in the context of fisheries and aquaculture. It is talking about blue transformation. So the question itself had the answer which is present. So the answer for this is option B. Now it could be fundamentally derived from the question itself. That is what I was talking about. If you consider prelims as a game of knowledge, it becomes very difficult. It becomes very difficult. And most of you might get a perception that I am giving a post-mortem analysis. No. In most of the instances when I'm taking sessions on prelims exam, when I'm writing myself, when I'm guiding the aspirants, when I'm guiding the students on prelims exam, and in the instances where I have enabled more than 500 candidates clear prelims exam, the understanding is very clear, and the day the candidates understand that prelims is not mere knowledge, it is knowledge and the respective application of knowledge in the right direction. It demanded calmness, it demanded composure, it demanded character for us to apply these aspects in the exam hall. And at least 10 to 12 questions we can find that answers were present within the question. We were supposed to identify under pressure game. But most of us failed looking at this aspect that in the initial 5 minutes, 10 minutes, by looking at the length of the paper, we had missed the opportunity. I would say, my dear, fundamentally the reason why I'm indicating all of this is for us to understand how we should be ready for 2027. It is not to demoralize any of us. It is fundamentally to regain the strength, to re-strategize and to get back better, to get back stronger, to grow efficient, to grow stronger towards Prelims 2027. That's extremely important because I see many aspirants having their shattered dreams because of this stage of the examination. And this stage of the examination demands not only knowledge, but also the way we apply the knowledge. That's more important in this particular context. Next, 40th question. Now again, this question might appear it's very factual. Yes, definitely it is very factual. I don't deny it. But again, when we look at the trends, wherever we see the word community, wherever we see the word people, wherever we see the word public, most of the times the statement happens to be correct. And I already told you that common words, the answer is going to be between the common word. Now in this I have community, in this I have community, it is going to be between these two. The answer is going to be between these two. Now when I say, I already told you community, now we are arriving at 50-50, although it is an unknown factual question. And when we are arriving at 50-50, it is us we will have to take risk, and the answer for this is option C with respect to Kasi Hill Red project. Next. Now, in this particular question paper, we can observe that science and technology was more application oriented and it was doable. And economy was also doable when it comes to the nature of the questioning. It is asking about genetic medicine. Correct, compensate the faulty gene responsible. Yes, because at the end of the day, whole of my genetic engineering is cut, put, get. Engineered viruses and lipid nanoprofiles are used as carriers in, yes. Genetic medicine, it is not altering the entire DNA, and the word entire is again extreme word. We eliminate the option 3 or statement 3. When we eliminate statement 3, we are remaining with 1, 1 and 2. 1 and 2 is the right answer. Now again, it's a simple question which could be solved. Now 42nd question. 42nd question with respect to LLM, that is large language models, assigns probability to the next possible word. See, most of the times when we are texting also, we see this option existing. LLM process data through mathematical optimization to minimize, yes, that is also there. LLM produces unbiased approach. Now here we cannot talk about the value base of a particular technology. Now because technology is mostly value neutral. Sometimes it could be biased, sometimes it could be unbiased, but we cannot load the statement with the value of a particular technology. So it is unbiased outputs, that is not the case always. Now one fundamental problem that we see with AI is the way we train it. And the person who is training it is biased will definitely have a biased output. So the understanding here is Third statement is incorrect. Answer is 1 and 2. Answer is 1 and 2. Next, 43rd question. Again, a beautifully framed question that I would say, which is talking about the stealth technology. The stealth objects have a very small radar cross section and are coated with radar absorbing material. See, stealth is all about that we should not be able to detect is what is the overall understanding of stealth. And when it is having a smaller radar cross section coated with radar absorbing, now when it is absorbing, it is not going to scatter. When it does not scatter, it cannot be detected. Because at the end of the day, my detection will go on with respect to how much of radiation or how much of the wavelength or the frequency is reflected or radiated out. So first statement is right. Stealth objects can be detected using specific frequencies. Yes, because it is not so scot-free at this understanding that it can be detected using certain frequencies. And stealth objects are coated with metamaterials. Now look at the third statement, because third is talking about increasing the scattering. First is talking about increasing the absorption. Now, if I increase the scattering, automatically what is going to happen is we observe that the detection can happen easily. But whole of my stealth technology is based upon inability to be detected. So third statement is incorrect. Now, when we say third statement is incorrect, you see, you eliminate third, I'm remaining with 1 and 2. I'm remaining with 1 and 2. Next. 44th, it's a question on black boxes. Now, there is nothing like emitting red light pulses. There's nothing like this with respect to black boxes, because we see a lot of flight accidents, and that was the basis of this particular question. They record both cockpit voice and flight data. Yes. The memory units are used either stainless steel or titanium. Yes, for the strength of it, because whatever be the kind of crash that we have, we always first search for the black box, and which fundamentally indicates that should be thermal resistant, that should be impact resistant, is the kind of material that should be existing. So statement 2 and statement 3 are right, but whereas first statement is incorrect. Next, again with respect to 45th question, a basic question about understanding of types of hydrogen and green hydrogen. And we know in 2023, in the month of August, we had an official definition with respect to what is green hydrogen, and the Ministry of Renewable Energy has spoken about that particular dimension. Now, it is decarbonized hydrogen obtained from natural gas reforming. It has nothing to do with, it is not based on SMR mechanism. Green hydrogen is majorly derived from the sources of renewable energy. Majorly derived from the sources of renewable energy. It has nothing to do with SMR methodology which is existing here. So first statement is incorrect. It produces electricity using hydrolysis of water with electricity generated. Yes, this is what it is. And we know the National Green Hydrogen Mission is having 50 million metric tons as their target. That's a straightforward question which could be answered. Although they tried to confuse in the statement 1, but if you're able to understand what is going on, it is nothing to do with SMR there. Next, 46th question, it is asking about the private entities. Now, in this straight away, you look at InSpace was an organization which was promoting the private participation. That is true. Agnikul Cosmos was talking about the 3D printing. That is true. Now, Skyroot Aerospace has never looked at liquid fuel for GSLV. No. Now, in fact, this was one of the private space flight which has been initiated. That is Vikram S. Nothing to do with GSLV in this particular context. So, third statement is incorrect. Now, when you eliminate third statement, you are remaining with option C. That is answer 1 and 2. That is answer 1 and 2 with respect to 46th question. Next, 47, again it is talking about the drone swarms. Now, whenever we are talking about the drone swarms, one advantage of this is it is seen to be operating at multiple frequencies. It is seen to be operating at multiple frequencies, sometimes at UHF, sometimes at VHF, and sometimes majorly it is with respect to radio. And whenever we are looking at this frequency of radio, it is not terahertz band, but rather it is gigahertz band. So first statement is incorrect. Now individual drones can communicate with, yes, GPS spoofing is a commonly used technique to counter drone swarm attack. Now first statement is incorrect. Now the question was fundamentally looking at whether is it operated on radio frequency or whenever it is operated on radio frequency, it is seen to be operating in hertz, gigahertz. So answer is 2 and 3. Next, 48th question. Now it is with respect to Genome India project. Now HGP is not, because in one part of the HGP, India was not part of it, but the name itself is very specific, Genome India project, and the timeline is also very different. So first statement is incorrect. That project is funded by DBT. The project is funded by DBT, yes. And its primary aim is to build catalog of genetic diversity of Indian population. Now, in case in the third statement, if they would have said whole Indian population, then it would have gone wrong. Because it has a very specific sample size of over 10,000 people to be considered there. So in this particular aspect, what you see, statement 2 and 3 is right. Because first statement is incorrect. It is not part of the Human Genome Project, but rather it is a separate entity which is existing. Now, National Quantum Mission. Now it is for developing intermediate scale of quantum computers, and it's for implementation of 4 thematic hubs. Now these are straight away from the objectives of the mission. These are directly from the objectives of the mission, and these are seen to be very logically consistent statements. So the answer for this particular question is C. Now Deep Ocean Mission. Now 50th question with respect to Deep Ocean Mission. Now here it is talking about India's Deep Ocean Mission. Which of the following are correct? Now we know one common understanding from the pattern is any statement having ministry is an incorrect statement. The first statement itself is containing ministry, because this is not with respect to Ministry of Port Shipping, but rather it is Ministry of Earth Sciences. So first statement you eliminate. Now look at the pattern, my dear. UPSC has not deviated with respect to its statement pattern. The overall structure of the statements have been changed. The overall length of the paper has been changed, but the inherent takeaways from the PYQs have not been changed. If you are able to observe keenly, be it the longest statement option, be it the dimension with respect to ministry, be it the statement with respect to did not or cannot or negative statements being incorrect, positive statements and progressive statements being correct, and the basis of the positive or progressive statements could be good governance, could be the aspects of sustainability, could be the aspects of progressive nature of the technology which is existing. The trends have not been deviated. The etymological understanding which has to be derived. It is all about we should be able to go one step ahead and understand that PYQs are not meant for by-hatting the concepts, but rather PYQs are meant for analyzing the trends which are being followed by the UPSC. That's extremely important for most of us, which has to be brought into the context. Right? So this is with respect to question number 50. Moving to the next question here, that is the 51st. Moving to the next question here, that is the 51st. Now this particular pattern was surprising again, that how come the questions related to governance, questions related to ethics came into the picture. The fundamental assumption that could be here is that if you go back and refer to the question paper, and if you go back and refer to the syllabus that is given for the prelims exam, there is a word that is mentioned in the prelims syllabus, that is public policy. Now in that could include schemes, that could include administration, that could include governance, that could include ethics. And that is where we see, here I am not justifying the act of UPSC, and I am neither telling that UPSC is always right. But rather I am trying to tell you that irrespective of the change in the pattern, we should be able to adjust accordingly whenever we are writing the exam. Definitely this is surprising, definitely this is not desirable, definitely this is troubling most of the serious aspirants which are existing and who are writing the exam. I understand. But if it is already asked, the only solution that is available to us is how are we going to tackle that particular crisis in the exam hall. Now, it's a long paragraph which is dealing with the systems of accountability that you can make out by reading the statement. Now, again, look at this particular question. Now, you directly look at the second statement. The government should move ahead with the project without delay to address urban health concerns which outweighs the sentiments of a small group. Now, that is not the way, or that is not how the administration is taken care. Now, because you look at the Gandhiji's talisman which is seen to be existing, you look at the components of good governance where you have participation and consensus oriented approach. So definitely the second statement is not going to sit right. So second is eliminated. Now, when you remove the second statement, automatically you arrive at the answer of 1, 3, 4 for this particular question. So that is one more thing that you need to remember. Now again, many people were talking about Mr. X, Miss X, which is being discussed in the paper. I understand. Now this is more to deal with a kind of ethical dilemma which is seen to be existing. And the answer for this particular question is option B. Rather, what is to be understood, you can figure out for some extreme words which are present here, recommended removing the contractor or immediately disclose the information. See, nothing can be immediate, nothing can be extinction, nothing can be removal. So, in that particular aspect, you'll have to be a little careful. Now, 54th question is one thing which can be contested. Now, 54th question, it can be little doubtful when it comes to the answer key which is given by UPSC, that is in the part of the provisional key. Now, in this particular context, it is categorically asking about the components of Article 13. Now, when you look at this Article 13, they are talking about, X is talking about the ordinances, orders and rules and regulation, and Y pointed out that the term law is also included customs as well as uses having in the territory for the force of law, but X was not convinced. Now, based on the above, select the correct conclusion from the given option. Now here, what is to be understood to a larger extent is they are asking who is correct. Either X is correct, Y is correct, or both are correct. Now, the view of both X and Y are correct, or the view of only Y is correct. Now, in this particular context, what is to be understood? Now, the contention here is, should we look at the view here with respect to Article 13 or with respect to perception of Y is a question. Now, when I look at the perception of X with respect to 13 and Y with respect to 13, both of these views are correct. But if you have to consider the X views on the view that is provided by Y. If the X views on the views of Y which is provided, now in that particular context, the view of Y is correct, but the view of X is wrong, because the view of X is seen to be countering the view of Y if it is seen from the perspective of the views which are present here. But if it was centered around Article 13 and if it was centered around the views of Article 13 of both X and Y, the answer should have been views of both X and Y are correct. Now here, so the answer could be either C or D depending upon what is UPSC considering when it comes to the word view, when it comes to the word perspective. Now if the question was very clear that it was talking about if the view of Article 13, whose view is correct, both the views are correct. But if they are talking about the views of each other, X view is talking about something, Y is talking about something, and the last line here is saying that in the territory of the force of the law to which X was not convinced. Because if I say this is the view of X, then view of x is wrong and view of y has to be correct. What UPSC has given is D. What could be an answer is C or D, subjected to what is the consideration that is being taken by UPSC. Now that could be one question which could be contested. Now consider the following statements with respect to 55th question. That is, it is asking about that there is no article in the Constitution that specifies. Now this is fundamentally with respect to 393, 394 and 395 sequence. So all of these statements are incorrect. So that means there is no correct statement in the above. There is no correct statement in the above. That is 55th question, answer is B. Next, 56th question, again a question with respect to disability. Now answer here that is given is B. Now again there are certain questions which are raised about the statement 3 which is given here, right, and the statement 1 which is given in this particular question. So the contention here in this particular page that I would tell you with respect to where you can challenge with respect to the provisional key, one is question number 54 and question number 56. That could be challenged here is question number, because now I'm talking about set A, right? Those questions which can be challenged is question number 54 and question number 56. As we proceed, we would add to that particular list. Next, 57th question again. In 57th question, the statement 1 is anyway incorrect because it is the tribal areas administration is dealt in 6th schedule, not 5th schedule. So first statement is incorrect. First statement is incorrect. Next, it is asking about some tribes are entitled. Yes, some tribes, that's an approximate statement. We always see that in UPSC, any statement starting with some is right statement. So second statement is right. The Constitution of India provides for reservation for belonging to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe. That is also correct. So 2 and 3 are right. So in this, if 2 and 3 are right, it is not 1, it is not all, it is not 1 also which is being correct. So 2 correct statements, that includes statement 2. So the option for 57th question is option A. Next, consider the following with respect to this. Now, one common observation which UPSC does is if it is talking about two concepts, most of the times you see that UPSC is seen to be interchanging the understanding of each concept. Now, per se, the same thing could be observed in this particular question. You see, unstarred questions are those which demand. Now, unstarred are the ones which are demanding written answers, and the starred are the ones which are demanding written answers, and starred are the ones which are demanding oral answers. So, which means they have interchanged. It's a very, very common technique, with very, very common trend which is followed by UPSC in every year's question paper. So, 1 and 2 will automatically go wrong. 1 and 2 will automatically go wrong. Now, looking at the third statement, no supplementary question can be. Now, that means if 1 and 2 will go wrong, it is either option C or option D. No supplementary question can be asked on unstarred question. So that's a correct statement because that is demanding written option. So option is going to be only one correct statement. So answer is C for 58th question. Next, 59th question, consider the following statements. Now, it is with, again, observe, as I was telling, it's a common technique which is used. All the members of the committee for both houses, the chairperson of this, it is not appointed by chairman of Rajya Sabha, but rather it is appointed by chairman of Lok Sabha. 20 members are elected. Now here again they have interchanged, because one understanding we know that membership of Lok Sabha is more than membership of Rajya Sabha. So representation from Lok Sabha should be more than representation for Rajya Sabha in most of the committees. I don't say all, in most of them. This is a very, very rare case where we see the Rajya Sabha could exceed. Right? So second statement is incorrect. No minister except for the union. There is no exception at all. There is no minister who is eligible to be part of the committee. Members are elected for a fixed term of 2 years. It is not 2 years, it is 1 year. Because all of your parliamentary committee, the lifespan that is existing is 1 year. So all the 4 statements are incorrect. Now, when all the 4 are incorrect, so automatically what is happening? There is no correct statement which is seen to be existing. Next. Now this is one more question where you can actually look at the contention. It is asking about mission Sudarshan Chakra. It aims to enhance the India's air defense ballistic. Okay. Then the mission is being designed to enhance a rapid, precise, powerful. Yes. Now one point of conflict that is seen to be existing here is one of the aims of this mission is to cover all public places of India by an expanded nationwide. Now one contention that we see here is, as part of the official statements of mission Sudarshan Chakra, we only see statement 1 and statement 2 are correct. Those are officially mentioned. But is it talking about the implication of mission Sudarshan Chakra, or is it talking about the aspects with respect to some extrapolated information about mission Sudarshan Chakra? We do not know. But what is seen to be observed in this particular context is, you see that UPSC has taken option A as the answer. That means it has considered third statement. But the official documents say answer is 1 and 2. So now the contention here is answer for this can be A or B. 68th question, the answer for this can be A or B. So you can also contest this question depending upon the official document. Now the official document does not have third statement, but UPSC has considered third statement as right. So we'll have to look into. Next, 61st question with respect to the bridges. With respect to the bridges which is being spoken about, the Maitri Setu built on Feni. Now here again what it has done, it has seen to be interchanged. Now it has interchanged here. Then apart from that, this is not Jula Ghat, this is not with respect to Myanmar, but again with respect to Nepal. And Mechi Bridge and its approaches connect. Now this is a correct statement. So the answer for this is first 2 are incorrect. Now when 1 and 2 are incorrect, the remaining answer is 3 only. 3 alone is correct with respect to 61. Next, 62. Now again this question is contentious when it comes to the options which are considered with respect to zero FIR. Right? There is a greater probability that the framing of the question itself is seen to be incorrect. A zero FIR can be lodged even though the place of commission is outside the territorial jurisdiction of the police station. The officer in charge of the police station where a zero FIR has been lodged may, with the permission of competent authority, initiate a preliminary inquiry. Under zero FIR, it is obligatory for informant. Now in this particular context, one thing is very, very clear, that third statement cannot be right. One thing is very, very clear, that third statement cannot be right. Now when we say third statement cannot be right, one thing that we got to understand that when third statement is removed, I am remaining with 1 only and 2 only. Now what is more important again is inherently the framing of the question is questioned. Right? The framing of the question is questioned because there are clear-cut verbatim which is put with respect to zero FIR and BNS. So in this particular context, again, this could be contested. It could be either C or D. Option could be C or D, or more probably there is no right option which is present in this particular question. So 62 also can be contested with respect to the provisional key. 62 can also be contested with respect to provisional key because there is no right option. Now whenever there is no right option, probably the question has to be deleted. Right? Now again, that's a discretion of UPSC what to consider. This is sheer basis upon the references, sheer basis upon the knowledge, sheer basis upon the various discussions which have been made. So this is what is my perspective. So the necessary action can be taken. Now 63rd question with respect to organization under Government of India, consider the following details. Now CEIB is Ministry of Home Affairs, SFIO is Ministry of Corporate Affairs, that is MCA. So second statement is wrong. CBI ministry is correct, but the purpose of it is incorrect. So how many of the above are correctly matched? There is only one which is correctly matched. There is only one which is correctly matched. Now here most of the students have considered this as a problem here. They were asking that how many are marked correct, but they have not asked which of the following is marked correct. Now be very, very clear, but most of the students have made a silly mistake by considering which of the following are marked correct, but rather they are asking how many are marked correct. Is it 1 only, 2 only, 3 only? They have gone for a different way of framing the option in this particular context because that has been a repetitive way of doing it. And we know 64th question has been removed. Now 65th question again. Now in 65th question, AI impact summit, very, very important, although in current affairs. Now one common logic that I keep telling and one common logic that could be observed from the PYQs to a larger extent is what? Is that you could see that the objectives or rather the themes of the summit which are provided are incorrect. For example, last year we had one question with respect to BIMSTEC, one question with respect to BRICS. Now in both of these aspects of BIMSTEC and BRICS, what do you observe? You see that the objective of that particular conference or objective of that particular summit is mostly given wrong. This is not the first case, my dear, be it with respect to the objectives of in 2021 which was asked with respect to certain sports question. 2023 there was one question like that. 2022 there was one question like that. 2019 there was one question like that. So what is the learning that I have taught in the class in the HRS? Most of these themes are seen to be incorrect. Now here, this is also incorrect. The preamble of which, now here, when you look at the second statement, it is talking about as a binding framework. Now one logic that we see here is most of the international aspects, because this is an AI impact summit, an international level summit which was conducted in India. And most of these international declarations, most of these international documents, they are non-binding in nature, not binding in nature. Now, but whereas when the second statement is talking about binding framework, remove the second statement. Now, when you remove the second statement, look at the beautiful pattern arrangement which has been made by UPSC. You remove second statement, you are arriving at the answer. And the second statement, you were supposed to have all the patience to read the second statement and see that it is talking about the democratic as a binding framework. Nothing is binding. Nothing is binding. There are very, very few documents, there are very, very few international declarations, there are very, very few frameworks, there are very, very few aspects which are binding. For example, last year also we had this dimension of non-binding aspect being given as binding in prelims examination. For example, that climate health fund related question. In 2021, we had indigenous community based question with respect to forest conservation. We find that also. So what do we get to understand to a larger extent is that these are non-binding, not binding aspects. So that is one more important thing that you need to remember. So third statement is correct. Next, 66th question, Agartala, Akura, it is not Asian. So remove third statement. So answer is 1 and 2. Now, if you are not comfortable, I would say that question could be left. Now, look at this particular question. One thing could be seen here, that this is common with respect to Bhutan. So that means A and 3 are seen to be matching. Now, when A and 3 are seen to be matching, I have two options which are present. That is, now in these two options, what? A is fixed, D is fixed. That means Institute of Security and Law Enforcement. I'll have to see between B and C. Now, when we look at between B and C, B is talking about restoration of Store Palace and C is talking about district hospital at Dikoyan of, this is Sri Lanka and this is with respect to Afghanistan. So the answer for this particular question, that is 3241. 3241 is the answer, that is option B. Next, 68th question. Which of the following? Akula submarine is not part of, it is not indigenously manufactured. So removing the third statement, answer is 1 and 2. Answer is 1 and 2 which is present with respect to this particular question. Next, 69th question. Now again the same binding non-binding logic could be seen here. The same binding non-binding logic could be seen here. Now 69, now it could be seen that the Colombo process is binding. And I already told you, and I would have told n number of times is with respect to in the classes of international organizations, international dimensions with respect to dealing with HAR as well as the prelims based classes, you see that anything that is binding can be eliminated. These are nothing but elimination techniques. Now people say eliminations are eliminated. My fundamental understanding is eliminations can never be eliminated from UPSC prelims. If you think eliminations are mere tricks, maybe they can be. But eliminations are not mere tricks. Eliminations are mere logical understanding and a broad generalization of a particular dimension. And eliminations can never be eliminated from prelims examination. It all depends upon how are we using it. What is the basis of learning? If I byheart it as a technique, it is eliminated. But if I understand the logic behind, if I understand the generalization behind, if I understand how to go about, if I understand the algorithm behind, automatically eliminations are ought to be present in every prelims examination. I can tell you with my own experience. And I'm showing you that. And this particular dimension binding, now do you think UPSC does not understand these aspects? It is we have to observe the previous year questions and understand these trends. And eliminations are not some magical tricks, just like looking at the question we will eliminate. No, understand the logic, understand the basis, understand what is the dimension that is existing behind that. That's more important to us, my dear. That's more important because at the end of the day, we should be able to write mains and we should realize our ambition of getting into civil services. That is the only purpose that I'm discussing all of these dimensions. So you look at the first statement going wrong. Now when you eliminate the first statement that is seen to be existing, you see we are arriving at 50-50. We are arriving at 50-50. Now I am left with third statement. The global framework for migration and created employment. Now this is a direct question. Now again, are non-binding. These are non-binding, and I know any framework which is non-binding is definitely a correct statement. Look at the second statement also. Look at the second statement also. It is telling it is non-binding. That is what is UPSC trying to test. Whether did you understand the examination? Did you understand the mindset of UPSC from its existing questions? But rather, what do we do with PYQs? We try to byheart the options. We try to byheart the questions. We try to byheart the information. But understand the essence. Understand the essence. I am not talking about post-mortem analysis. I am talking about let us have right understanding, and this is the thing that I have been doing for last 4 years when it comes to my students. That is why I was able to enable more than 500 candidates qualify prelims examination through high impact revision. There is a fundamental understanding that there is a way of looking at the prelims examination and it is not mere knowledge. If we completely rely on knowledge, then prelims will always appear to be a stumbling block for us to qualify this examination, my dear. My concern is that this is the stage which is stopping us realize our ambition of getting into civil services. I don't want that to happen. I don't want that to happen, and if it should not happen, we should understand the right objective. We should understand the right way of solving these questions. We should understand what has been going on with the prelims examination. How to deal about this particular dimension in a better way. That's the fundamental objective of having this particular session today. So it is asking about how many of them had more than once with respect to the Nobel Peace Prize, or they have asked twice. In this, UNHCR is the one which has had twice. Now again, most of us are confused. Many of you have marked option C. Why? Because it was showing 3. It is not asking about whether the first one, second one, third one or fourth one, but it is asking about how many. It is how many means only one. So answer should have been option A for this. It is not option C. Many of us made a silly mistake with respect to this particular question in spite of knowing this particular answer. Now 71st question is one such question. I would highly recommend you to leave answering such questions. Because there is no clue, there is no logic, there could be something which is applied. Leave that question. Now 72nd question is also one such question which could be left. Now if you have to look at the 71st question, the answer for this is B. There is no point in discussing that particular question. 72nd question is with respect to option C again. 72nd question is with respect to option C. With respect to, again, now this is one such question which could be left. There is no point in fiddling around and wasting our time here. 73rd is also one such question which could be left. Answer is option D to this. Because there is no way that we would know all of this. Now, 74th question, it is asking about Rashtriya Gram Swaraj Abhiyan. Now, when we look at this 74th question, Rashtriya Gram Swaraj Abhiyan, one, it is talking about the implementation date. We are not very sure. It is talking about the objective. That is right, because you see the sustainable development aspect which is present in this. Now, look at the third statement. Now, in the third statement, what could be seen? If it is talking about the funding mechanism, it says 100%. That means it has made it a central sector scheme. But if it is dealing with Panchayat is under the ambit of state government, definitely some contributions will have to happen from state government. So third statement is automatically wrong. Now when you remove third statement, I am remaining with 1 and 2 and 2 only. Now when I am remaining with 1 and 2 and 2 only, the option that is present is 2 only, because objective is right and the date of implementation will always be deferred, because the factual base is very easy for the examiner to change. Now look at this particular question. Many of the people started telling that should we sit and by-heart the countries of European Union? Should we sit and by-heart the countries of Africa? UPSC is not asking you to by-heart. You should be able to understand that Switzerland is not part of EU. Switzerland is not part of EU. Now when you are able to understand Switzerland is not part of EU, automatically you eliminate fourth statement, you are arriving at the answer. So UPSC is never demanding by-hearting. UPSC is never demanding rote learning. UPSC is just enabling you to understand, yes, this is the logic of the game. This is the logic of the exam. And you observe that logic, you eliminate one option, it is taking you to the right option. Here I am not telling all that is done by UPSC is right, my dear. Please don't get me wrong. But what is the thing that I am trying to convey in today's session is very clear, that we will have to step up our game. We will have to step up our game. We will have to learn from the history. And the fundamental understanding is prelims is not mere knowledge. Prelims is also something beyond knowledge. Now, are we preparing for some logical services? Maybe UPSC perceives that in administration it demands more of logic. We are not very sure what is the objective, what is the spirit of UPSC following these patterns when it comes to the prelims examination. And they are a better person to handle about this particular dimension is what I can definitely tell you. So we have finished 75 questions so far. Moving to the last quarter of the paper, that is 76th question. Now it's a question on Interpol notices. Now this is one particular question, in fact, which has been expected for last 3 years. But somehow now UPSC had made it to asking, and straightforward based upon the knowledge. The answer for 76th question is option C. It's again a match the following. Now 77th question is one such question which I would say you could have left it in the exam hall, because in this, if you observe, the second statement is incorrect. So the answer for this is going to be option B, that is 1 and 3 is right. It's more of a factual based question which you got to remember. Now 78th question, again, as I was indicating initially, that it is asking about not the correct ones but which are not correct. Extremely factual could have left. Now if you look at from 70th question onwards, what do you observe with respect to from 70th question onwards is you see that certain questions could have been definitely unanswered, could have been left. Now if you would have left those questions, you would have had more time and you could have attempted better. Now 78th question is again one such question which I would say. So the answer for 78th is option B, which is 1 and 4. Now 79th is one such question which is current affairs, which is static, which has to be addressed. So answer for 79, straightforward, option C. Both the statements are right with respect to 79. Now 80th question. Now in the 80th question, what is seen? It is asking about national standard to test and assess bomb disposal. Now we are not very sure about the first statement because it's extremely factual, extremely specific. Now it will improve interoperability of equipment across agencies. Now I am not very sure about this again, but one thing that could be seen here is interoperability is always across the agencies is always a desirable factor in the context of administration and in the context of operation. So in that context, second statement is a positive statement. So when we look at second statement being a positive statement, second statement can go right. It was developed by TBRL in collaboration with 30th Central Scientific Research Institute, Russia. Now it's an indigenous system. It's BIS. Now it was not in collaboration with this particular institution, rather under the guidance of this particular institution. So the statement 3 is incorrect. Now when you remove the third statement, now the remaining options that I have here is 1 and 2 and 1 only. Because when I say that one particular trend that could be observed when I have too many facts which are specified in a statement, the statement is incorrect. That's a trend. That's a trend analysis which should be seen from last 10-15 years of UPSC prelims examination. Any statement with factual overload or excessive facts can be removed. So remove third statement. And I know second statement is a positive statement, so answer is 1 and 2. It could have been answered provided you understood the trends and the nature of question. Now, 81st question. I understand UPSC wanted to make our life very difficult in this question. Answer for 81st is C, that is John Clark. Next, 82nd question. Now again, this is one question which can be contested by looking at the options. Now it's asking about Grand Slam, and when you go and look at the rule book of the Grand Slam, the second statement says they are open for entry to all internationally ranked. Now it is not all internationally ranked. Somebody who is ranked 500 and above or better are the ones who are eligible for this. So the age bracket has been mentioned, but the rank bracket has not been mentioned. So second statement is one thing which we are a little skeptical about. So 82nd question, UPSC has given option A as the answer, but it could be option C, A or C, provided what is the consideration of UPSC. So this question also adds to our list where you can contest this particular question. With respect to set A, question number 82, the question on tennis could be contested because 2 is not very specific. Next, 83rd question. Again, 83rd question is highly recommended to be left in the exam hall because it's extremely factual and it's also asking about which of the following are not correctly matched. The answer for 83rd is option C. There is no much of a logic which is present here. Now, 84th question which could be seen, it is talking about Bharat forecasting system, extremely important when it was in current affairs. And it is not by IIT Delhi, but rather it is by IITM Pune. So 84th, second statement is incorrect. Answer is first statement because objective is right. Objective is right with respect to cluster level approach in forecasting. But second statement, now again, this is again based on elimination. Last year we had similar question with respect to the chip, Majorana chip, which was designed and they have given Amazon instead of Microsoft. Now that's again a very similarly patterned question, very similar factual question, and factual statements can be changed by UPSC to a larger extent. So that is observed there. Now 85th question is one more which I would highly suggest you to leave, provided you are not aware about this question. But the answer for 85th question is all the statements are right. It's extremely difficult in the exam hall to look into it. Now many people are saying 86th question can also be contested, but I would like to have a different perspective on 86th question. Now when I look at 86th question, that is question on blockchain technology, records stored in database may be made visible to relevant stakeholder without risk of alteration. That is correct statement. And copies of entire database are stored on multiple and network sync within seconds. Yes, that is correct. Consortium is a blend of public and private allowing selective data access. Third statement is incorrect. That cannot be done. Mathematical algorithms make it impossible to change. Many people are questioning about the potentiality to change the data in the blockchain. And many people are telling that 4 has to be eliminated. It is not impossible. When they eliminate 4, they will arrive at 1 and 3. But the condition here is the biggest strength of blockchain technology is the inability to alter. It has time stamping and it is very, very specific with respect to the data sets and the blocks of data. That is the fundamental reason which is providing the strength, which is providing the security, although it is anonymous. Why? Because that is the reason why we recommend it to be used in the voting system, why we recommend it to be used in the banking system, because of its unalterable nature of the blocks of data which are time-stamped, which are existing. So I would say that the fourth statement is correct and we should not contest about this particular statement. Right? So my take for this particular question is answer is 1 to 4, which I would not recommend to contest, but it's up to the respective sources which you can refer, but fourth statement is correct. Now 87th question, it's again option A, drop shipping method. Now read the statement, you will have the answer there. A e-commerce revenue model where seller has control over pricing but does not keep product in stock, instead transfer customer orders and shipment details to third party supplier who then ships the goods. Now look at this. Now look at this. Who then ships the good? Now UPSC did not have any purpose of using the word ship if it was not giving you the clue. That is what I told, my dear. That is what I told, that in this particular paper, at least 10 to 12 questions we had answer within the question. Answer within the question, and it is very evident. And that is what we were supposed to observe in this particular pattern of the questioning. And this is not the first time. UPSC has been doing it, will continue to do it, how much ever we say that this should not be done. Next, 88th question, it is talking about financial inclusion. Any inclusion deals with access, usage and quality. A simple, straightforward question again. Next, 89th question, again simple question on ONDC. It is option C, to break the dominance of large e-commerce platforms. That's true. 90th, that is the question with respect to UPI. The answer is D for this. In both the cases, the liability lies with the user and their respective banks. That's absolutely correct in this particular context when it is talking about which is asking, okay. It is asking about which of the following is not correct. It is asking about not correct. It is not with respect to the liability existing here with the holder or the bank. Rather, the liability is going to be different in the context of UPI as well as CBDC. So that is one more important dimension that you got to understand. 91st question, it is talking about tokenization. Now in this, when you read the statements on tokenization, you see that is the process of turning real world assets into digital tokens, yes, using blockchain technology. Tokenization of real world, promoting financial inclusion, very true. Of real world assets will allow the access to higher growth investment opportunities. Now at the end of the day, the whole purpose of tokenization is to ensure it is transmissible, ensure that it is secure, ensure that it diversifies the opportunities which are present. So when you look at these three statements, these are very evident. So answer for this is A. All the three statements are right. Next, 92nd question. Now again, when you look at 92nd question, I already told you longest option. And not only longest option, but you could also see with respect to the broader perspective which has been included in the context of sustainability. Sustainability will include both green as well as the social aspects of it. So it is talking about sustainability bond which could be selected. Then 93rd question, I would say it is a tougher question which is existing, but if we understand that M1 exchange provides collateral based loans. See, most of the times in MSME case, we don't have collateral based loans. Because the bigger problem for ensuring the credit dispersibility in the context or institutional financing in the context is collateral comes as a blockade. Now in this context, if you talk about the collateral based loans, it would defeat the purpose of financial inclusion with respect to MSMEs. So first statement could be eliminated. Now when you eliminate first statement, what is seen to be happening? I am remaining with 2 and 2 and 3. So 2 is definitely correct. Look at 3. Functions as a credit rating agency for MSMEs. Now it is talking about exchanges. The same exchange is having credit rating agency. There will be a conflict of interest. So remove third statement. So answer is going to be what? Option B when it comes to this particular question. So answer is going to be option B. 93, it is option B. Now again, if you understand the purpose of MSMEs and if you understand the issues of MSMEs, this could be answered. Next, 94, a simple straightforward question with respect to crowding out effect. The answer is option B. You know, when we have more role of government and which is pushing the lesser role towards the private sector, we see that is crowding out. Then answer for 95th question, it is asking about rare earth elements as well as the critical minerals. Now, when you look at the second statement in this particular question of 95, the second statement here is China has the highest share in mining followed by India. It is not India. We are import dependent upon China. It is not the India with respect to the share. We are almost the fifth, not the second. We are the fifth with respect to rare earth elements. We are not the second. So in that particular context, second statement will go wrong. And whereas the first and third statements are right, so the answer for this is going to be this. Now rare earth elements are not set of 13 things, but rather rare earth elements are 17. It is not 13. So the again, the number based statements are incorrect. That is what we would study as part of the trends which are observed. So you eliminate 4, we are arriving at 1 and 3 and 3 only. So you don't even have to speculate on the second statement. Look at the first statement. Modern technological innovations utilize rare earth elements. That is talking about the application based statement, and any application based statement regarding technology, that is right statement. So it is a straightforward question. Although the question is appearing difficult, all that you were supposed to know here was that rare earth elements is not 13, it is 17. That's very, very important in this particular context that you will have to remember. So remove 4, you arrive at the answer. Next, 96th question with respect to insurance sector. 96th question with respect to insurance sector. Now both the statements are right in this particular context. It's a tough question. If you had any knowledge, you could have continued. Otherwise, you would have left with respect to this particular question. Now again, 97th question, both the statements are right. Now because crowdfunding is, you see the funding happens from multiple investors, it is not single. Raised fund at lower cost of capital without undergoing rigorous procedure. That is true again. Why? Because at the end of the day, most of the MSMEs are informal, most of the SMEs are debt driven, and they demand a lot of support. So in that context, the crowdfunding is seen as an alternative source of financing in this context. 98th question, very static, very factual in the context. Answer is 2 and 4. That means, see, Urjit Patel committee was majorly talking about the inflation targeting. So you could eliminate third statement in this context. So you eliminate third statement, you're remaining with 2, 2 and 4. And Malegaon committee was talking about the microfinancing, which is to be remembered in this particular context. So 92nd, that is option D, which is correct, 2 and 4, Malegaon committee, because Urjit Patel is with respect to inflation targeting. There you see 4 plus or minus 2%. That was based upon Urjit Patel recommendations only. Next. 99th question, a question on NBFC. Now, when you look at NBFCs, all the NBFCs operating in India are registered. No, they are not registered with RBI. Rather, some of them are registered with respect to Companies Act. So, second statement is incorrect. Then, third statement form part of payment and settlement. They do not form of part of payment and settlement system. These are the basic differences that you see with respect to NBFCs. So, second and third statements are incorrect. So, answer is 1 and 4 because the deposit insurance is not available. The fourth statement is correct. That's basic understanding of what is NBFC. That is what I was telling you. S&T and economy in this particular paper were doable. And other aspects of the questions were also doable provided we had calm, composed manner when we are attempting this particular question. The last question for today, that is multi-dimensional poverty index, very, very important that you could see here. Look at the third statement, maternal indicators are part of Niti Aayog and it is not a part of UNDP. Because one difference that has been followed by National Multi-Dimensional Poverty Index and UNDP is, in UNDP we have 10 indicators, in Niti Aayog we have 12 indicators. That's a clear-cut information that was supposed to be remembered, and when I was taking HR current affairs classes also, I was indicating upon that. So the answer for this is 1, 2. It is not the third statement which is correct. Now, the final conclusionary remarks on 2026 prelims examination, definitely it was part of the learning curve for every UPSC aspirant. And definitely it is an indication that prelims examination is not a mere dependence on knowledge, not a mere dependence on some magical, random, baseless, illogical tricks. No. UPSC prelims as it is will indicate it's a game of knowledge. It's a game of knowledge plus application. When I say application, understanding the trends of UPSC prelims is important, which I keep teaching in high impact revision classes. And more importantly, you also got to understand that prelims examination is not mere rote learning or by hatting. In fact, UPSC is giving you clues within the paper. This year I have shown you at least 10-12 questions which are having clues. And the third aspect that we will have to understand is unless and until we change the approach towards prelims examination, qualifying prelims will become difficult for all of us. And qualifying prelims is very, very important because that is what is going to keep our dream alive for becoming a civil servant, for becoming an IAS officer. And coming to the provisional key contentions, I told you there are over 6 questions or 5 questions which could be contested. 1, 54, this is with respect to set A, you can go and cross check. 54th question, 56th question, 60th question, 62nd question and 82nd question. I am not for contesting blockchain technology question, for a reason that understanding the technology and looking at the technology aspects in a very, very close manner, I would say whatever the key that was considered by UPSC for blockchain technology, I would stand by that. But otherwise, these 5 questions can definitely be contested in the provisional key. Now, because 5 questions will have a lot of change in this course. And towards the end, I would like to tell for somebody who is crossing 70 plus, for somebody who is crossing 70 plus with respect to GS and happily qualifying CSAT, I would like to suggest that start your mains preparation immediately. Now 70 with respect to the unreserved category, the respective reservation categories would have the lower cutoffs. So you can start your mains preparation immediately without wasting time, because this 10 days is going to make or break your mains examination. So ensure that you're preparing well for mains examination, and any kinds of doubts regarding mains, we are available at the institution, and we would see and we would grow together for a stronger future, attempt, be it 27 or be it 26 prelims, be it 26 mains examination. So that is it from my side for today. All the very best to the candidates, and any kind of doubts, we are available at the institution. Thank you.